Samarkand. I mean, the name itself just sounds legendary, doesn't it? It conjures up these incredible images of the Silk Road, of golden cities shimmering in the distance, and for nearly 3,000 years, it's been at the very center of empires, trade, and huge ideas. So how does a city like this actually endure? Let's dive in. So take a look at this. This is the Registan, the absolutely magnificent heart of ancient Samarkand. And when you look at it, you can't help but wonder, what is its secret? How on earth does a city get conquered, completely leveled, and then rise again to become one of the most beautiful places on earth? Well, that's the incredible story we're going to explore. And our story really begins on the famous Silk Road. UNESCO officially calls Samarkand a crossroads of cultures, and that is not an exaggeration. For literally thousands of years, it was the critical link connecting the great civilizations of China, India, Persia, and Europe. This place wasn't just some dusty rest stop. It was this vibrant, chaotic hub where ideas, technology, and unimaginable riches all crashed into each other. And even the name itself kind of gives us a clue. Samarkand most likely comes from the ancient Sogdian language, and it means something like stone forts or rock town. It's a name that speaks to strength, to permanence, right? A foundation that was built to last. Now you can imagine, with a prime location like that, Samarkand wasn't just a place to trade goods. Oh no, it was a prize. For centuries, the city's story is just one of conquest after another. A literal parade of the world's greatest empires, all of them wanting to claim this jewel for themselves. And the pace of change was just relentless. I mean, the city starts out as a major hub for the Sogdians, an ancient Iranian civilization. Then it becomes a Persian capital. Then bam, in 329 BC, Alexander the Great marches in. After him, you get a whole succession of Turkic rulers, until Umayyad Caliphate shows up in 710 AD and brings Islam to the region. With every single conquest, a new layer, a new identity was added to the city. And this gives you a sense of just how unbelievably cosmopolitan this place was. Long before it was famous as a center of Islamic learning, Samarkand was a true melting pot of faiths. You had Zoroastrians, Buddhists, Nestorian Christians, and Jews all calling this city home, living and trading right alongside each other. And here's a really crucial point. Samarkand wasn't just soaking up culture, it was broadcasting it. Take paper, for instance. The secret to making paper, which was a Chinese invention, was supposedly brought to the city after a battle in 751. And pretty soon, the very first paper mill in the entire Islamic world was built right here. And from Samarkand, that revolutionary technology eventually made its way all the way to Europe. So the city had become this incredible beacon of wealth and knowledge. But you know how these stories go. That very success, well, it put a giant target on its back. And in the early 13th century, a storm was gathering on the steppes to the east that was going to bring Samarkand to its knees. I mean, even in the 13th century, after some of the first Mongol shockwaves, you still had travelers like Marco Polo describing Samarkand as a very large and splendid city. It was famous across the known world. But that was all about to change in the most brutal way you can imagine. In 1220, the armies of Genghis Khan arrived. And what followed wasn't just a conquest, it was an annihilation. They completely razed the city, slaughtered most of the people, and turned that splendid city into this, the ruins of Afrasiab. For a while there, it really seemed like the story of Samarkand was finally over. But it wasn't. Out of that absolute destruction came the city's most glorious chapter. Another world conqueror would arrive, but this time, he wasn't there to destroy Samarkand. He was there to resurrect it on a scale that was grander than anything the world had ever seen before. In 1370, the conqueror Timur, you might know him as Tamerlane in the West, declared Samarkand the capital of his massive new empire. And this wasn't just some political move. It was the start of an artistic and architectural explosion that we now call the Timurid Renaissance. Tamer's method for this rebirth was, well, it was both simple and totally ambitious. As he conquered lands from India all the way to Turkey, he would spare the lives of the most brilliant artists, architects, and craftsmen he could find. Then he brought them all back to Samarkand, swelling its population to maybe 150,000 people, and basically turning the entire city into a monumental workshop for his imperial vision. And the results? Well, they were just breathtaking. This is the Gur Amir, Timur's own final resting place. Just look at that fluted azure dome, the incredibly intricate tilework,
This was way more than just a tomb. It was a statement of power and beauty that set the standard for monumental Islamic architecture for centuries to come.
His ambition was just boundless. He ordered the construction of the Bibi-Khanym Mosque, and he intended it to be the grandest in the entire Islamic world. Legend has it that its dome was supposed to rival the heavens, and its gateway was meant to look like the Milky Way. The sheer scale is just hard to wrap your head around.
And then you have the Shah-e-Zinda, the tomb of the living king. It's not just one tomb, it's an entire avenue of mausoleums, and each one is a masterpiece of ceramic art. Walking through here is like stepping into a gallery made of turquoise and lapis lazuli. This was Timur's vision brought to life, a paradise on earth.
But the Golden Age didn't stop with just architecture. See, Timur's grandson, a guy named Ulu Beg, was a very different kind of ruler. He was way less interested in conquering the world and much more interested in understanding the heavens.
So in 1448, he did something pretty remarkable for a Timurid ruler. Instead of just conquering things, he built one of the greatest scientific observatories of the medieval world. Its main instrument was this enormous 3-story sextant built right into the rock. Assistants would actually use staircases along its massive arc to take incredibly precise measurements of the stars. The charts they made were so accurate, they were used for centuries, and his team calculated the length of the year to within a minute of modern measurements. He didn't just keep Samarkand beautiful, he made it a capital of science.
Now, after the Timurids, Samarkand's story didn't just stop. It kept on being the center of power, a stage for the great game of empires, all the way into the modern era.
Later on, Uzbek rulers came in and completed that stunning Registan square. This is the Sherdar Madrasa, a religious school that's famous for its mosaics of roaring tigers, which was a really bold move, kind of defying the traditional Islamic rule against depicting living things. And it was right here, on this very square, that the city's next chapter began with the arrival of the Russian Empire in 1868. And the city's importance just kept going into the 20th century. For a brief but really significant time, from 1925 to 1930, Samarkand was actually the capital of the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic, before that title was permanently shifted over to Tashkent.
Which finally brings us to today. And Samarkand is not a museum. It is a living, breathing city where all of these different layers of history exist all at once. It really is still a crossroads.
Modern Samarkand is basically two cities in one. You've got the old city, where you'll find all the ancient monuments and the traditional workshops, and then you have the new city, which was built mostly during the Russian and Soviet periods, and it's full of administrative buildings and universities, the past and the present, just living side by side.
So what's the key takeaway in all of this? I think Samarkand's story is one of absolutely incredible resilience. It's been a global center for trade, for religion, for art, and for science. It has been destroyed and then reborn time and time again. For 2,700 years, it has been a crossroads where the world meets. And when you see its long, amazing journey, it just makes you wonder, what will its next chapter be?